Okay, so in an assessment you could be asked to change an improper fraction, which is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So this is the top number, is the numerator, and the denominator is the bottom number. So some people also call this top heavy, because the number is bigger on top. So you could be asked to change an improper fraction, top heavy, into a mixed number, which is a combination of whole numbers and a fraction. So one typical question could be change 7/3 into a mixed number. Now, the denominator is telling us what our equal pieces are split into. So we've got thirds. And our numerator is telling us how many we've got. How many pieces. So if we have a look at that, we've got 7/3. So in our first picture we've got 1, 2, 3 of them. So that doesn't represent 7, so we need another pizza split into thirds. And then I've got another 3, so that's 4, 5, 6 pieces altogether. Still not got 7/3, so I need one more pizza. And that's our 7th one there. So the question says change it to a mixed number. So you need to think, how many whole ones have you got? I've got one whole one there and another whole one there. So I've got 2 altogether, 2 whole ones. And that final picture represents 1/3. So 7/3, 7/3 is equal to 2 whole ones and 1/3. Okay, so likewise you could be asked to go the other way. This time you might be asked to change a mixed number, so let's say 3½ into an improper fraction. So we want 3 whole ones and a half, and we want to know what that represents. So if I split all my pizzas into halves, what that's telling me is in each whole one I've got 2 halves. So altogether in my 3 whole ones I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 halves, and I was only supposed to have half in the last picture. So if we just quickly try and shade these, I've got 1 whole one, 2 whole ones, 3 whole ones, and the half. That shows me each pizza is split into halves, so altogether I have 7 halves, and that's how we write it. So 7/2 is the same as 3½ . Okay, so you could be asked a question where you need to add and subtract with mixed numbers. So for example, if you had 1½ plus 2⅓, you would need to change both questions, so this part and the other part, into top heavy fractions first. So 1½, if we quickly draw a picture, 1 whole one split into halves, and the other half is 1, 2, 3, that's 1½ is the same as 3 halves. If I want 2⅓, I need 2 pizzas, and then just the 1/3. Each pizza needs to be split into thirds. So this is my third there, and I need all of that and all of that. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 thirds. And I need to add those 2 fractions together. It's only now I can start to make the maths easier and get an equivalent fraction to add them together. So like in previous videos, you need to find a number that is common to both 2 and 3 for a common denominator. Look back at those videos if you need some help with that. Common denominator is going to be 6, so it's going to be times 2 for the one fraction, which is going to be 14, and times 3 for the other fraction, both top and bottom. So it's going to be 9. These 2 fractions now need to be added together. So I've got the 9/6 plus the 14/6, giving me a grand total of 23/6. If the question didn't ask you to change it to a mixed number, you could leave it as that. However, if it forces you into it, you've got to change it back. So 23/6 means every pizza will be split into 6. So there's 6 in there, 6, 12, 18, say 6 times table, 6, 12, 18, ooh. 6, 12, 18, 24. So I'll have enough with that amount of pizza. I'll have the 6 from there, the 6 from there, and the 6 from there, and I only need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from that one. So 3 whole ones and 5 out of 6. So subtracting would work the same way, so using the same numbers if the question was written the other way, so 2 1/3 minus 1 1/2. You'd follow the same process. So just speeding up the calculations, we had it from before, that was the same as 7 over 3, and 1 1/2 was the same as 3 over 2. We do the, if you look back to your previous working out, then we've got, that was the same as 14 over 6, minus 9 over 6. So remember, these were just made equivalent fractions, and then the answer to that this time would be 14 take away 9. So 14 over 6 take away 9 over 6 is going to give you 5 out of 6. And that's it. Okay, so multiplying fractions. So if we've got a question like a half of a half, this one we could do through a picture, because the word would be like that in the exam, but that's the same times means of, so half of a half. So if there's a half and you're only allowed half of it, you've got a quarter. And if you practice loads of these, you do tend to find out that for multiplying fractions you can times the numerators and times the denominators. So it's not too complicated, but when you do it with mixed numbers, we do need to be careful. So for example, if you had to multiply 1 1/2 times 2 1/3. Before you can do this calculation, you need to change both numbers to top heavy, because it's not just 1 times 2, because we would have to times the 1 by 2 and the 1 by the third. So it's much easier to change them top heavy to avoid any mistakes. So if we get 1 whole 1, split into half, so that's going to have 2 in there, and the other half, which is there, that'd be 3. So that's the same as 3 halves. 2 over 3, sorry, 2 1/3. First one, second one, and then we'd need that final one on there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that 7th one. So 7 over 3. You can then use your multiplication. Times the numerators, 7, 14, 21, and 2 3s are 6. Again, the question could ask you to change it back into a mixed number, so you could go and sketch some pizzas of 6. There'd be 6 in the first one, 12 in the second one, then 18, and then the next one we would not be able to fill it. So if we start to think that through, 6 in there, 6, 12, 18, 19, 20, 21. So that is 3 whole ones and a half, because if you look at what's actually shaded there, that's 3 out of 6, which is a half. So simplify the fraction as well. Okay, so first things first, you probably have heard of it before with dividing fractions, a method of KFC. So when doing KFC, let's first look at a division question. You could have a third divided by 2/7. So we make the maths easier, think about inverse operation, and we're going to change it to a times calculation. So KFC tells you to keep the first fraction exactly as it is, so that stays as a third. Tells you to flip the second fraction, so when you do that, 2 over 7 becomes 7 over 2. And then you've just got to change the sign from a divide sign to a times. Then you can do, as in the previous video for multiplying, 1 times 7 is 7 and 3 times 2 is 6. Again, if the exam question asks you to change it back into a mixed number, we'd have 1 whole 1 with 6 in, and then we'd need another pizza with just the 1. So we'd have all of that one with 6 in and the other one, so 1 whole 1 and 1/6. Okay, the same process works with mixed numbers, so 1½ divided by 1⁵. But the first golden rule is change them to improper fractions first. So 1½ is the same as 3/2, as we've already been through. I'm going to keep the division as it is for now. 1⁵ is the same as 6/5. So I'm going to move that up to the top. So we've got 3/2 divided by 6/5. We're going to follow KFC, keep the first fraction the same, 3/2, flip the second one to 5/6 and change the sign. Then you just follow the same process through with multiplication. 3 5s are 15 and 2 6s are 12. If you had to do as a mixed number, it's going to be a whole one because that's 12 pieces, and there are 3 left over, which is 3 out of 12. But remember, 3 out of 12 is the same as 1/4 if you use equivalent fractions to divide by 3. So our end answer would be 1 1/4 for that one.